Hello, how are ya?
Hey there, hi buddy, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
So here we are.
We are here. It is our first episode of the Cosmic Waves podcast, and today's theme is flowing with cosmic currents. So, surrender, trust, and divine timing. So, Deborah, I'm going to actually just jump right into it and ask you a question. Why is it so hard for people to surrender?
I'm laughing because, I've been like, there have been moments in the last couple of weeks where I've really been on my knees surrendering about a number of things. It's control, it's survival instinct, it's control. It's this fear that we have, that's just, it's in our amygdala, the part of the brain, the lower brain stem, that's basically like, be careful. You've got to belong to the tribe because if the tribe kicks you out, you'll get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger and you suck at making fires, so you're going to freeze to death. And you're too squeamish to, like, gut anything you catch and roast it and eat it, or, whatever. It's the basic survival things. And I mean, that's actually been studied scientifically in research. Like, they put little, electrodes on people's heads and see what happens in their brain when they're scared or whatever. And it's, and then when they relive experience of, like, no one lets them sit at the lunch table, and that actually mirrors this literal response of, like, oh my god, the tribe doesn't accept me, I'm going to die because there's a saber-toothed tiger out there. But now the saber-toothed tigers are things that we've been conditioned to believe, like the years and years of societal programming that's like, this is a threat, that's a threat, this person is a threat because they're different, that belief is a threat because it's different, you have to do this, you have to do that, you can't do this, you're too young to this, you're too old for this. So there's all these conditionings that also, and it's like all of this noise. And now we live in a world where we are constantly plugged into that noise, constantly plugged into that noise. And while there are many amazing benefits to the technology, here we are not as far apart geographically as we often are, but in times when we recorded, things earlier, I was on one side of the country, you were on the other side of the country. So we have this technology, but it also plugs us into this, and we are constantly being fed these messages. And so how do we get out of that? You know, we're not even really encouraged. This is happening more, but we're in and it's starting to come more into the mainstream. You and I are blessed to be in communities and to have mentors that encourage us to step back from that, because that's not the voice of what is true, what the universe is having for us. We talk about, we call this the cosmic wave. And yeah, there's all kinds of waves of energy that's out there. It's whether it's, the past energy that we're tapping into, the collective energy, the energy of just bad weather, or whatever it is. There are those waves of energy. I follow the astrological patterns and try to interpret them for people so they can use them, right? But I also like to think that there's also that the cosmos, the universe, is also waving at us. It's like, hey, here. So, what do you think are those messages, those little cosmic waves, hello, that help us to get out of that cycle, that hamster wheel of fear?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was actually triggered by one of your statements because you mentioned the lunch table, and then immediately I felt a punch in the gut.
Hmm.
And my brain just like went back to like the lion's den of the cafeteria in elementary school or middle school. And those memories, or those that social conditioning that you were talking about, we can really choose to connect to that fear and to that toxicity and pain from the past, or we can align with our best possibilities and the abundant energy of the universe. So I think whenever we fall into those moments of fear that are not truly moments of survival, that we should breathe, realign with our trust in the best possible outcome. And when we're able to make that shift, then truly synchronicities and start popping into our lives, opportunities arise, and we're really riding that wave and that flow instead of resisting it. Do you have a story or a time where you can think of where maybe you made that shift?
Yeah, I do. But before that, I just want to validate and just affirm that experience. What you spoke about and so openly and vulnerably is a really good example of the fact that I talked about something because I sort of had similar experiences too, being the only sort of mixed race kid in my elementary school many times, and being called names, slant eyed and stuff like that. So referencing that, and immediately you're not sitting in your beautiful studio sharing this space with me, immediately your brain is like, you're in the lunchroom, danger, danger, Robinson. So I just want to let you know while you're standing there looking like I don't know where to sit. Like I'm like the girl that's sitting at the lunch table where there's only like one or two other kids sitting over there. And I'm like, hey, buddy, come over here and sit down. Come sit down with me at the lunch table.
Oh, well, thank you. That means the world to me.
Yep, and I hope that for all of you out there, that's why we're inviting you in. Come sit with us at our lunch table. You are all welcome.
But what's interesting, I'm going to interject really fast before you tell your story. It's those, while that fear in the moment felt so horrible, it's provided us now in hindsight an empathy to open up our table to others. So I think that's so beautiful that so often those moments teach us to be better and to do better as we learn from those experiences.
Yeah, and I'm also laughing because, we talked about we did a mastermind together, right? We talked about like, the concepts of soul contracts and this idea of like, we agree or sort of sign up to have certain types of experiences and so that we can take in these lessons to help others. And I think, in future episodes, we'll talk about the sort of concept of getting stuck in the hamster wheel of suffering and letting go of that. But, I think but there have definitely been moments, particularly more recently too, where I'm like, are you sure I signed up for this? Can I see the contract? I would like to read the fine print and I want to renegotiate because I need more pizza in order to get through all of this too. But yeah, as far as, so the stories of resistance, gosh, I mean, I was raised. My mom's Japanese, so I was raised to be, and I'm the only daughter, and I'm also the oldest child. So I was raised to be very obedient. I was a really good student in Radley Valentine's Angel Wisdom Tarot. I am that like the little ace of earth and then the perfect, page of earth, the perfect student, always turn in the papers on time, all of those kinds of things. Take responsibility for that. But there was a certain point in my teens where I think I began to really sort of feel like, I'm being told that I have to do things this way. And I'm like, but I really kind of want to do it, this way. So my most recent story about resistance is this whole process of, I retired in the summer of 2020. I had plans for what I was going to do in retirement. I was going to travel. I was going to go on a road trip. And of course, no one was going anywhere in 2020. So I like to say I went on an inner journey. I took all sorts of, fortunately, there were all kinds of online classes and I connected with the mentors in our community. That's partly how we met, right? That's how we met. And I went on this inner journey and really did a deep dive into many things that I was interested in: angels, Akashic records, channeled writing, and art therapy too is another thing that came up. I'd always sort of had a background in astrology. And everyone's like, you're so good at this when you do readings, this and this and this, you should start a business. I'm like, no, 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 you don't understand. I'm retired. I have no interest in running a business. I have worked like 40 years to get to this finish line. I do not want, running my own business sounds like a lot of work. And over the course of the next year or so, the universe had another plan. And I mean, all of that sort of flipped around, that switch flipped when at the Angels and Oars event in LA in 2022, where you and I got to meet in person for the first time. And I had that opportunity to answer the answer the request to be up on stage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am. And I have a lot of planets in Leo, so being on stage wasn't necessarily as scary as it would be. But all of a sudden, as I'm doing this process, there's all this color that's coming through this, all this energy, and I realized that it wasn't a matter of I should start my own business. It was a matter of this is this feels really good. And the connection that I made with that person who showed up at a later mastermind, and we had a sort of synchronistic event there. that experience of that feeling of like, this wasn't work. This was like bliss. This was like joy. Like I sat down and I was like on a high. That took me several weeks to go back and watch that recording because I'm like, it can't have been as good as I think it is. But when I finally did, I was like, wow, this is really something. And so I realized that this wasn't about starting a business to like be this like huge successful entrepreneur. I mean, of course I want my business to succeed. I would like for it to at least pay for itself, and get out there and reach people. But it was realizing that this idea that I don't want to start a business because I'm retired and I shouldn't have to work. But what if I want to work? What if I wanted to do this work and understanding what my reason why for wanting to do that work, what one of our mentors calls the North Star, of helping people. I was like, I believe in what I do. I want to encourage other people to believe in what they do.
That's awesome.
So, what's your story?
Oh my god. Well, so I moved from New York City to California a few years ago. When when I made that shift, I had envisioned this life for myself where I was going to be lounging in the hammock with snuggling the dogs, watching the butterflies, and it was going to be like, even though I'm not retired and I'm definitely working, I just had this like vision of like peace and relaxation. Of course, with the political climate, I have been offered by the universe invitation after invitation after invitation to kind of step up and take action and to get involved politically, especially locally. And I resisted that at first because I was like, "Oh no, I left that behind. I left that behind." But I would go to the local like restaurant or coffee shop, and people from high school would pop up and they remembered my past. As a teen, I was super politically active and I was the student body president. So they would be like, "Oh, you're back. Are you going to run for mayor? You must be deciding to run for council." And I was like, "Oh no, oh no." Each of those conversations where other people kind of were subtly calling me to step up and to show up, and I definitely hesitated at first, but as I kind of sat back, and it happens that I'm writing my memoir right now, so I'm like writing my memoir, and even in my like free writing sessions these moments are popping up of like, oh no, this is like a calling. I like feel deep in my bones a calling to be politically active and to show up for my community. And when I allowed and I let go and I just eased into that transition, and instead of resisting it and feeling this like guilt or this weight on my shoulders, it was almost like this release that I felt lighter. I felt more confident and comfortable accepting that call. And that's where I think it's like it's somewhat challenging for people because like how do you differentiate that like expectation from others, right? That are not maybe your calling from those little invitations or breadcrumbs that are. And that is where I think people struggle. So I guess I'll ask you, how do people in their everyday life trust the process and learn to accept those little invitations?
Two words, one of which is probably the least favorite word of people were patience and practice and patience. It comes down to faith. And faith is something that we have to nurture. It's something we have to cultivate with practice and patience. It's being patient with ourselves. It's being patient with, not impulsively learning to temper the impulsive response to something of like, oh no, I've got to do this, or I've got to respond to this or defend myself. And the other part for me, this is a big part. I know you and I share this one practice. We are both students of the Course in Miracles. But what I love about Course in Miracles, and there are many, many teachers out there that are also talking about this. I sort of perceive this duality that we live in, this human, I call it the human experiment, the human experience, where there's basically sort of almost, people talk the 3D world, that it's kind of two dimensional in the sense that there's basically two ways of viewing everything. And everything really comes down to one of these two lenses. We're either looking through the lens of fear. This is survival. Oh my gosh, what does this mean? I've got to do this. I've got to respond. Warning, warning. Will Robinson, danger, danger, Will Robinson. It's for people who are fans, old enough to be fans of the original Lost in Space. There's also the lens of love. And my belief is that it is when we look through the lens of love, of realizing that no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the situation, that we are being held in this embrace by the creator, however, the universal consciousness, the divine consciousness, that it's just love. And that if we make choices from that place of love, so there's two places in our body that are respond to these things. We have the mind, which is very useful. The mind is very, very helpful. The mind is like, log on, find the link so that you can show up with John this morning, But there's the mind also has lots of opinions. This is a quote from Lee Harris, a channeler who I follow. His guide said, the mind has many opinions, most of which are not correct because they are rooted in the past. The mind is interpreting everything from this is what happened before, this is what happened when you didn't do this, or you have to do this, or. So the mind has many opinions. The heart, however, is rooted in the moment. The heart is with us here and now. And the heart is speaking in the here and now from the perspective of love. So there's this practice of discernment, of which, to get into that, it's as simple as, and you can do this when you're standing in an airport and your flight has just been canceled. I'm hoping that doesn't happen to me tomorrow. Cancel, clear, delete, because I'm flying back to New York tomorrow. But or wherever, when you're in the grocery store and the line is crazy, or whatever is going on, or something, you scroll by and something comes up on the news and you didn't want to see it, but you did, and so now what do we do? Pause, stop. You don't even have to close your eyes. It's helpful if you can. Put your hand on your heart. If you feel really self-conscious about that, you don't have to. Then just put your hands, touch your body somewhere. Put your hands on, ground yourself by touching yourself. You just take a deep breath, breathe in, breathe out 3 times. And if you're really feeling rattled by what's happened, say your name. Deborah, Deborah Rahalski, Deborah Rahalski, 3 times, to just really come back into that consciousness. That tempers the reaction. It's that response. It's that learning to pause and wait. Now, if you're facing a really big decision, you might need more than 10 seconds of breathing and pausing to really make that choice. But you disconnect yourself. You develop a practice of stillness. I studied Zen for a while. The one thing I learned about by studying Zen meditation is that my peace of mind does not come while I'm sitting on my butt. So I actually use a practice of walking meditation. I mean, I do have moments before I get up in the morning, before I start my day in stillness. But I also have a practice of walking meditation. I will go out and I will walk, and I will look at the sky and notice the leaves, or the flowers are coming out, or the feeling of gentle rain on my face, because I'm in Portland and it rains a lot. So whatever brings you, just to disconnect from all of that, my thoughts in my head are swirling, swirling, swirling. I'm like, I'm just walking. I'm just here walking. I'm just here breathing. Because what I've learned from working with my guides is they keep reminding me, you are a human being, not a human doing. So if we follow this practice of coming into the state of being and connecting with even the difficult feelings. I'm so confused. I'm really stressed out. I don't know what to do. Okay, acknowledge that. But I need to know what to do. Okay, but you're not going to know what to do. You're not going to be able to figure that out if you're like, I don't know what to do. If you keep saying that over and over again, you're going to manifest not knowing what to do. You say, I don't know what to do. I need help. And reaching out, because you and I know we have guides, we have guardian angels. We have, whether it's guides or spirits or ancestors, whatever we reach out for, if we say, I am in this space of, I need help. So it's that discernment of, I'm in a state where I need to center, you ground, get in touch with what you're really feeling and being honest about it. And then if you need help, reach out and ask for help.
Awesome. I have a similar practice where if I notice that I'm resisting and I can like feel it in my body, I try to acknowledge it and to like name it. I think when those moments of fear and resistance pop into your head. And I realize that I'm in alignment with fear instead of alignment with love. Just calling it out is often the first step to kind of snapping out of it. If it's lingering, or if it's like persistent, then you can like journal, or you can reflect. Again, like for me, it always manifests in my body. I can really feel it. So even stretching or taking a warm shower, doing things to nurture my body often help me emotionally as well. And another exercise I really love is making a timeline of past evidence. So creating a timeline, or reflecting in a journal of times where the universe had my back and where everything went right. And when I can connect and look at the past evidence and realize, like, oh, my fear is unfounded right now, because really my life has shown me that there is nothing to be afraid of, and that I I do better when I'm coming at my decisions from a place of trust and flow. Any closing words, Deborah?
Well, I think the one thing too is this idea that and I guess I feel like I'm kind of blessed in this because I do not remember a time in my life. If I go back, way back, like to myself as a younger child, I've done a lot of inner child work. From a very, very young age, I always felt this presence around me. There are stories connected to that, with to share at another time. Yeah, there were certain times in my sarcastic teens and my, my crazy career-driven 20s where, I was like, yeah, I don't know if any of this stuff is real. The astrology seems to work because it's database, but I don't know about this prayers and all these kind of things, you know. But I did keep up my practice of I studied, I learned to do some very basic yoga, but also Tai Chi. That's sort of part of that movement. And you're right, you feel it in your body and you move. And I did find that that did sort of there. I definitely believed in the concept of this energy, but eventually I came back around to realizing that the presence never left. I just I had just turned off my trust in it, maybe my awareness, my willingness to believe. And so it's accepting us as humans, realizing that we're having this human experience and accepting those experiences, but also realizing that we are also a spark of the divine. Inside, underneath all of this, I think about people who knit, and when their ball of yarn gets all like wound up in knots, it's like this knotted ball of yarn. There is this beautiful spark of the divine. And that beautiful spark of the divine is with us. It continues throughout time and space. And if we're not trying to reach some, I think about Monty Python and the Holy Grail and the speaking head in the sky of like God in the sky. I stop groveling. I hate it when people grovel. What we're really trying to connect with is that spark that's inside of us. We're connecting with a piece of ourselves, and it's never left because we're here and it's with us. So it's really being open to accepting us as we are in the human experience, and also accepting ourselves as we are as a spark of the divine.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Well, that's it for our first episode. We did it. And join us next time as we discuss color and energy.
See ya.